The Dallas Cowboys finished the 2023 regular season with a 12-5 record for the third consecutive year, and for the third consecutive year, they would go on to finish top 4 in points per game. In the regular season, that is. As we know, they would get embarrassed by the Green Bay Packers at home to the tune of a 48-32 loss, sending them home before making the NFC Championship game again. They did pretty much everything right from the start of the year. They protected the football, they made big plays when they needed to, they certainly didn't trip up against bad teams, as that's what they were known for in 2023, was absolutely pummeling bad football teams, minus the Cardinals game of course, but yet it was the same result as before. Every time the Cowboys lose in the playoffs, everybody and their grandparents get their jokes in and their laughs in because of being the same old Cowboys. Truth be told, I thought this team, at least through the first 12 or 13 games, was different. Even entering the Green Bay game, I didn't think it was unreasonable for them to beat Green Bay and face the Lions at home in the divisional round of the playoffs. But despite the loss only, and even only is in quotations here, being by 16 points, Dallas was embarrassed, and it's time to have a realistic conversation about what's next for this team. Out of any of the 3 playoff losses during the Mike McCarthy era, whether it was Dak running the ball as time expired in 2021, or Zeke playing center in 2022, or Jordan Love taking them to school, this was by far the most complete postseason loss this franchise has suffered in the past several years. There is a lot to break down regarding the future of this team. Now let's begin. We are starting today's video by talking about a player everybody has an opinion on, and that's quarterback Dak Prescott. Despite Dak finishing the playoff loss against the Packers with over 400 yards and 3 passing touchdowns, anyone who watched this game knows most of those numbers came when the game was far out of reach, or what is referred to as garbage time. For reference, Dak finished the first quarter just 1 of 4 for 0 yards with an interception thrown to star corner Jair Alexander. With time expiring in the first half, he would throw a touchdown to Jake Ferguson and finish the first half, going 13 of 21 for 87 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, with the other interception being a pick 6 in what would balloon the Packers' lead to 27 points. The Cowboys started the third quarter with a drive that lasted over 5 minutes, only to kick a field goal and make a 3-possession game, as they would cut the lead from 27-7 to 27-10. The Packers would answer with a touchdown drive and make it a 34-10 game midway through the third quarter, and this is effectively when Dak would really start to accumulate his numbers. Prior to all of this, Dak was not playing good, and even simple things that Dak normally does well was nowhere to be found. There was one play in particular in the early part of the second quarter where I thought to myself that the lights were too bright for this team, and that is a big problem. That doesn't pertain to just the Packers game. Dak took a sack on 3rd and 5 on the Packers' 36-yard line, which pushed the Cowboys back to the 42-yard line and effectively out of field goal range. Dak had all day to throw this ball away and took one of the most unnecessary sacks you'll ever see at the NFL level. This was not a do-or-die situation in the fourth quarter. This was as simple of a play as you're ever going to have once you move out of the pocket. I was concerned for the Cowboys after this, and on the immediate next drive, the Packers had a 93-yard scoring drive, which put them up 21 points. The pick 6, of course, ensued after that, but part of the Cowboys conversation is about Dak, which is always going to be the case when you are the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, and for as bad as he played in this game. Now, what needs to be remembered is this loss was not entirely on Dak. Green Bay received the opening kickoff in this game and proceeded to have a 12-play, 75-yard drive that took up over half of the first quarter. Yes, one of their scoring drives was only 19 yards, which was set up by a Dak interception, but another was from a 10-play, 93-yard drive, and another was a 5-play, 75-yard drive to extend the lead to 34-10. I understand everyone wants to get their jokes in about Dak going to Cancun now that the season is over, and one of the funnier ones I saw on Twitter was mocking Dak's "yeah, here we go" cadence with a map pointing from Dallas to Cancun, but blatantly saying this loss is on the play of quarterback Dak Prescott is, well, wrong. Yes, he had a big part, but so did Dan Quinn's defense. This team allowed 30 or more points in a game just 3 times in 2023 and 40 or more just once, which was when they allowed 42 to the 49ers back in Week 5. Yes, you can make the argument the defense didn't allow a true 48 in this game, but they comfortably allowed 30, which is 90% and hell, probably more than 90% of the time, not going to be good enough to win a playoff game. Dallas is in a very interesting position because if they moved on from Dak, I don't think you could really blame them, as lifetime he is 2-5 in the postseason and makes mistakes he normally would not. If you want to say the stage is too big for Dak Prescott at times, there's nothing really stopping you from saying this. In the previous 2 playoff games, the Cowboys put up 12 points on the road against San Francisco, which is not enough to win, and they put up 17 points at home against San Francisco, which more often than not is also not enough to win. Dak is also entering the final year of his deal that he signed back in March of 2021. It was a very large deal for the time, as it was a 4-year deal worth $160 million. Unfortunately for the Cowboys, the average annual value is more than $40 million for the top quarterback in today's NFL, which is what Dak signed a few off seasons ago. Due to maneuvering money around, Dak has a cap hit of over $59 million in 2024, which is a lot to begin with, and I would imagine the Cowboys want to alleviate some of the money elsewhere. For reference, and this is per Spotrac.com, Dak's cap hit of $59 million is currently slated to take up nearly 23.5% of Dallas's salary cap alone in 2024. Dallas also has a couple of guys to pay who are on their rookie contracts by the names of CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons, and while that won't hurt the Cowboys in 2024 specifically, it's not unreasonable for CeeDee to want long-term security at the quarterback position to basically ensure the Cowboys have a contingency plan in place and that he won't have a situation like other star receivers have had in the past where bad quarterback play limits what they can do. Not only this, but the NFL can change in the blink of an eye, and there's a reason guys do anything to ensure they get that second contract. Obviously, making it to the NFL is more money than a lot of people can dream of, but there is a significant difference between Dak signing a 4-year $2.7 million contract in 2016 and a 4-year $160 million contract in 2021. I don't say this to bring up a bad memory as much as it is to show how quick things can change, but we all remember the injury Dak sustained in 2020. I would be extremely surprised if his camp isn't pushing for him to sign another 3-year extension this offseason so they don't have to worry about Dak playing in a contract year in 2024. What this means for the Cowboys' future in 2024 and beyond is I think we are looking at a reality where Dak will get a contract of an average value of $50 million per year, CeeDee will get a contract with an average of either 28 or 30 per year, or somewhere in that area, and next offseason Micah will get a contract somewhere near what Nick Bosa got, which was a 5-year $170 million contract, or an average of $34 million per year. Meaning in the next 2 years, I think the Cowboys will be looking at a reality where they are spending an average of $115 million per year in 3 players, which of course would be Dak, CeeDee, and Micah. But the big question that still remains in this is, do you trust Dak with the season on the line? And if you don't, and if you think it's time to move on, well, simply put, there's not a lot of options. I don't want to sit here and say you can't find another Brock Purdy or even imply Brock is better than Dak, but for any team trying to find a 7th round quarterback and having him be your starter for the next few years is much easier said than done. This is very much a needle in a haystack situation. Hell, finding a quarterback in the 1st round to start for your franchise for the next few years at a high level is hard enough by itself. The reason we even bring Brock up here is because it relates to money. Dak is being paid nearly $60 million in 2024, while Brock will have a cap hit of just a little over $1 million in 2024. Another reason this is brought up is because I think the Cowboys are a lot like another team we recently did a video on, and that's the Miami Dolphins. Miami, like Dallas, is in a tough situation because they'll beat the hell out of teams like the 2023 Giants, who were banged up all year, or the Panthers, for example, and those teams are teams the Cowboys and Dolphins each played this year, with Dallas obviously playing New York twice. Both the Cowboys and Dolphins beat these teams by double digits, and the situation Dallas finds themselves in is similar in the fact they are good, hell great even during the regular season in Dallas's case, but they're not good enough when it matters. I thought Dallas was going to beat Green Bay, a 9-8 team that made the playoffs in Week 18 with one of the youngest rosters in the NFL. I thought Dan Quinn could make Jordan Love's life hell, but there is no way around what happened for both the Cowboys and Dolphins in the wildcard round, and more so for Dallas, they absolutely choked. One thing Dallas will have to work on entering the 2024 season is improving their run game. It's very easy to box score watch and say Tony Pollard had 1,000 yards rushing and basically say he's fine, but Cowboys fans know he was not fine for most of the 2023 season. Tony was a fun player to project entering the 2023 season because he had nearly 1,400 yards of offense in 2022, but once the reins were handed over to him this year, he didn't exactly step up and show he should be the back for the next few years. He had a single 100-yard rushing game this year, which was against the Cardinals back in week 3, and one thing I think is frustrating for Tony is he had a lot of opportunities in 2023 to show he was the guy. This wasn't a situation where he wasn't given touches and he was being phased out of the offense. He finished 7th in the NFL in carries this year with 252 to be exact, and when we say he cleared the 1,000-yard rushing mark, well, he technically did, as he finished the year with 1,005 rushing yards. One of the more frustrating games for Tony this year was against the Seahawks, who finished the year bottom 5 in every rushing category defensively, and Tony had 20 rushing attempts in this game. He would rush for just 68 yards on those 20 attempts for an average of 3.4 yards per carry, and he will be a free agent this offseason. I can't imagine they bring Pollard back unless it is such a team-friendly deal for the Cowboys that they can't refuse it, which would obviously not make Tony Pollard happy because that would mean significantly less money. This would also continue into the playoffs in a game where Tony would rush for just 56 yards on 15 carries for an average of 3.7 yards per carry. We know all about Dallas beating up on the bad teams this year, but they weren't a great team when they ran the ball, which may be surprising because a lot of their game scripts would call for them to run the football. In order for Dallas to take the next step as a franchise, they're going to have to be better at running the ball in 2024. I know we criticized Dak for his play during the Packers game, rightfully so, as he was not playing good in that game, but if this team wants to make it back to the NFC Championship game for the first time since 1995, I think they have to look into whatever they can do to take stress and ultimately work off Dak's plate. He looks stiff in the Packers game at times, and having a good run game like he did in his rookie season in a year where Ezekiel Elliott would go on to rush for over 1,600 yards and 15 touchdowns would have been extremely beneficial during this year's playoff game. You can also say that Dak will turn 31 years old before the 2024 season starts and has never been to an NFC Championship game, and that it's time to move on. There's 8 years of Dak being the team's quarterback, or 7 if you want to take out the 2020 season, of proof of them never stringing together multiple playoff wins in the same postseason under Dak. But I also think Dak having 2 35-plus touchdown seasons in the last 3 years is too much to pass and to just move on and say it was a good run. Personally, I would try to work out a long-term deal with him while doing whatever I can to alleviate him having to throw the ball 60 times in a playoff game. Obviously, the script called for that given how the game was played, but in addition to working on a deal with Dak, there are several free agent running backs this offseason that would love to compete for a championship. You can get your jokes in, but a guy like Saquon Barkley has one winning season in his entire 6-year career, and I'm sure he would love to try to be the first back since Emmitt Smith to bring the Cowboys a Super Bowl. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 34% of people watching are subscribed, and it helps the channel tremendously. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.